make sure we're good. We are good. Awesome. So the lab for recording audio talks about using the Apollo. You don't have to use the Apollo. You can use whatever audio interface that you have or that you want to use. That's totally up to you. It just talks about using the Apollo because that's what we use at school. So if you're at school, you can do it, you can go through it, but really, don't stress it. If you don't have it, don't stress it. I'm going to go ahead and just open up this lab here, and I'm going to download the file and follow the instructions. There it is. Boom. Close this one out. All right. So there's that. No, you do not need to come on. Yeah, you don't. Oh, okay. Never mind. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's like a little bit of a lag, right? So it's like something that I talk about and then you're like, oh, wait, okay. So let's just check this out. So let's just talk about recording stuff in Pro Tools. Really, this is the important part here. So a couple things. When you're setting stuff up in Pro Tools, if you're hearing me, okay, then you should be good to go. But if you want to change your audio interface in Pro Tools, the way to do that is in the playback engine. And that's over here. If we go up here to Setup, Playback Engine, right up here up top. Setup, Playback Engine, boom. And in here's where you can change your playback engine. Now, if you're using a laptop and you want to hear stuff on your headphones and you want to record stuff with the microphone, Pro Tools and your computer both actually see that as two separate interfaces. Your microphone is one audio interface and your headphones is another audio interface. It's something that's been like that for a while. So you have to make sure that you have two separate audio interfaces set up. And you want to do that with the Pro Tools Aggregate I/O. So we're going to come back and talk about the Pro Tools Aggregate I/O in just a minute. But before we do that, let's talk about some of the other things that are in this window right here. So you can see that with my system here, my playback engine is just set to my Universal Audio Thunderbolt, but I have a few things here. I've got a Pro Tools Aggregate I/O, I've got the display port for, I don't know what that is, Pro Camera, because these cameras actually have microphones in them. I've got an external microphone, which is plugged into my Mac Mini so that you can hear me. That's what I'm talking to you through. I've got external headphones, Mac Mini speakers, Soundflower, Record Box Aggregate, App Connect, like all this. I've got so much stuff on here that I've used at one point or another. So I just use the Universal Audio Thunderbolt because that's what my audio interface is, so I can hear stuff through my headphones, and then y'all are hearing me through the microphone that's plugged in. But I can also have a microphone plugged into my audio interface because I've just got like a little audio interface here that's connected up just like a normal audio interface thing. So that's really what you want to use. But if you have to use something else, you can use the Pro Tools Aggregate I/O, which we're going to talk about here in a second. Now, the hardware buffer size. We are going to talk about this in more detail another time. I don't think it's today. Let's just see. Oh, it is today. Okay. So we're going to come back and talk about that in more detail. But basically, this is where you set up your latency and stuff like that and how much time your computer gets to think about stuff. I usually leave mine set around 128. It just actually was set to 256. The reason why I was set to 256 is because I was trying to figure out why my Pro Tools was broken yesterday morning before class. I was like stressing, and the first thing I did was try the buffer size. That didn't work. And then I realized, oh, it was the new version of Loopback that killed my whole machine. So I went back and I changed the Loopback to an older version. The host engine, turn this on, ignore errors during playback, yes. Minimize additional I/O latency if you want to. I usually don't. Dynamic plug-in processing, definitely yes. Video engine, you can turn that on if you're working with video. If you're not, turn it off. For now, just leave it off. Playback size, this kind of has to do with how much RAM you've got. I just leave mine set to normal, but I have a lot of RAM. So I could actually set this up for probably like 8 gigs and be okay. Yeah, here, I'm gonna hit okay on that, and let's just make sure, let's see what happens with that eventually, because I've never actually researched that or changed it, and I just realized I've got 32 gigs on this machine, so I think I can spare 8 gigs for Pro Tools. All right, so that's how we can set that stuff up. So the playback engine right there, boom. Now, let's take a look at this Pro Tools aggregate device. In order to do that, what I'm gonna use is I'm gonna use my audio MIDI setup, which is Do I not have it in here? Oh, it's right here. I've got it set up over here, but let me just show you where it lives on your computer. If I go into my Finder, and what I want to do is I want to go into my Applications folder. And in the Applications folder, I want to go to Utilities. So you're going to open up Finder, go to your Applications folder, and open up Utilities. I'm on a Mac Mini. I'm not on a laptop. So my Mac Mini does not have a microphone built into it. I have to have another microphone that I use for it. I have an audio interface here. I'm actually using an Apollo Aero. I have my Apollo, I've got a bigger one in my studio for that. But yeah, I love the Mini. It's great. Mine was a little bit on the pricey side when I bought it. I think I spent like $2,000 on it, but I had it like maxed out with stuff. It's the well, here, I can just show you what it is. So that's mine. The memory I got later. I didn't buy the memory from Apple. I got it later, and I opened up my Mac Mini and put the memory in myself because I'm comfortable doing that kind of stuff. And it saved me, like, my memory was like half price because I got it not from Apple. But I got the 3.2 gigahertz Intel Core i7. I believe maybe now they have an i9 chip for it, but I'm not sure if they've done that yet. If you can get the i9, do it. The i5 is okay. i3 is don't get the i3 if you can avoid it. But if it's much cheaper. But like I said, mine was not $800. Mine was like $2,000 because I got it pretty souped up, and that was including the memory and everything like that. So it wasn't super cheap, but it's a great machine that I expect it to last me for 10 years at least. I hope. My last iMac that I had was 10 years. Yeah, you can customize. Well, you can customize the processor with Apple before you buy it. Like you can you can get like a different hard drive inside of it, and you can get like a different this and a different that. Once you get it, you can open it up kind of, but you can't really customize things like the processor because there's too much on the processor card nowadays. So it's not like nothing that's this small these days are really customizable very much. And even the RAM, you're not supposed to open it up and put the RAM in yourself, but it doesn't void the warranty. It's just they don't recommend that you do it. So, all right, so that's what I've got. And I got that back in I got that about a year ago actually, when my iMac finally died. My iMac was like 12 years old. 10, no, it wasn't 12. Sorry, it was a 2011, but I got it in 2010, I think. So it was like 9 years old, something like that. All right. So now we've, let me see, where were we? Oh, yeah, so we were going over here to my audio MIDI setup. So if we go into your applications and go to utilities, and then in here, you're gonna go into audio MIDI setup. Now, I recommend that you drag audio MIDI setup onto your dock and leave it on your dock because it's something that you're going to be using a lot. So I'm gonna open up my audio MIDI setup. And this is for audio and MIDI. So right now we're looking at MIDI stuff, and you can see all the different things that I've had connected to my computer at one point or another over the last year. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up my window for my show audio devices here. Boom. Don't need my MIDI stuff. So I'm gonna show my audio devices, and this is all the different stuff that's connected to my computer right now. And we can see here's my Pro Tools aggregate. Now the Pro Tools aggregate can have multiple inputs and outputs and stuff like that. And what happens is all of the stuff that you have connected to your computer will show up in a list here, and you can click it to say use or don't use. I'm not going to click anything else because this is already set up correctly. But basically what you would do is you would have your external headphones and your external microphone checked. And that way, whenever you want to record your microphone and listen at the same time, you can do that in Pro Tools. So once you've got those two things checked, you can just quit out of this and go into Pro Tools and go to Playback Engine and select Playback Engine Pro Tools Aggregate I/O. And you'll be good to go. I'm not going to do that because it's going to make me close things down and open things up. It's a whole thing when you do it, but you can do it, and I do recommend that you set that up like that. Now, if you're using an audio interface, I do not recommend that you use it. Pro Tools Aggregate is a piece of hardware you have connected. So this is a great question. Pro Tools Aggregate is not a piece of hardware that you have connected. But this is the thing. Aggregate devices, whoops, nope, cancel. Aggregate devices are seen by the computer as a separate piece of hardware, which is pretty cool. It's actually software that tricks your computer into seeing different hardware. So, it tricks your computer into letting you use multiple devices. But really what it's doing is you're just using a piece of software to do that. So your computer sees it as a piece of hardware, but it's not a piece of hardware. So this aggregate device here is not hardware, it's just software, it's just built into the computer here. But now I can use multiple audio interfaces. And this is really cool. So for example, my studio out in Brooklyn, we've got it set up now. So we have 16 inputs, and we're getting 16 inputs from using multiple different audio interfaces. Now, they're not all going to sound exactly the same. It's not perfect, but to get 16 audio inputs going, it's a bit expensive. And I don't want to buy any more audio interfaces right now. I don't want to spend $1,000 on another audio interface that'll do 16 inputs. And I don't want to get a cheap, crappy audio interface that's like $500 that'll do 16 inputs. I want to, my audio interface is a nice audio interface. And so I want to keep it that way. I just don't have as many inputs. So we have a couple of nice audio interfaces that are nice, that are really good, like a Duet and UAD, and we've got a Motu. These are nice audio interfaces that cost a lot of money each one, but we're just using the aggregate to consolidate them to get all the inputs that we need. Drift correction, basically that's for your clock, that it kind of like helps to sync up the word clock for each thing. I don't know how well it works. I've never actually done a deep dive into drift correction here, but it's supposed to help sync up the word clock so they're sampling the sounds at the same time. All right, you should just check them. The boxes should be checked for these. Okay, so I'm gonna quit out of this, and we got this in here. Now let's just talk about this hardware buffer size here. Playback engine, we talked about this stuff, good. Aggregate device, just talked about this stuff here. Where to get to it, how to do it, the buffer size. Okay, so the buffer size. The buffer size is how much time the computer is given to think about things. So think about it like this. If I have a keyboard controller and I've got my computer and I got my speakers, when I play the keyboard, my action is I hit play on my keyboard. I play it, boom, I hit a note. The instrument is in the computer and it plays the sound. And then the sound has to go out of the computer to my speakers, my headphones, and I hear it. So the time between when I play it and I hear it, that's called latency. That's here, right here. This time between events is called latency. Now, the buffer size, what it does is it makes that latency more or less. More latency, less latency. So if I go ahead and play a note on my keyboard, and I hear it, the time between when I play it and I hear it, that's called latency, and that's my buffer size in there. Now, a bigger buffer size gives my computer more time to think about things, but it also means that there's going to be a bigger gap between when I hit the key and when I hear it. So if I'm playing stuff live, I want small gap. I don't want a big gap. I want as small a gap as possible. So I want less latency. Therefore, I want a smaller buffer size. But if I'm not playing stuff live, if I'm mixing and I'm listening to stuff and I'm just listening for a good mix and I'm using more plugins, then I can have a bigger latency because I'm not playing live. I can use a bigger latency, I can have a bigger buffer size. And a bigger buffer size is great because it means that my computer has more time to think about stuff, which is awesome, right? So what I'm gonna do is, this is how it all maps out here. The buffer size is set in samples. So if we go in here to our Pro Tools and we say buffer size right there, I've got my samples here. So I've got 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, and 1024. Now, each one of these is setting it bigger. So 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, like that. And we got a nice little map here that I said. So the smaller buffer size equals a quicker result. So I press play on I press the keyboard and I can hear it coming back in my headphones. But it's less processing time. So this is better for live performance. It's better for live performance. but it means you can use less plugins or less powerful plugins, okay? So it's good for for live performance. It's bad if you want to have a whole lot of plugins going on. Oh, sorry, thumb down, bad. Thumb up, good for live performance. Thumb down, bad for lots of plugins, okay? But as we get into bigger buffer sizes here, bigger sample times like this, well, this equals a slower result, more laggy result, bigger latency, more latency, okay? Well, this is bad for live performance, but it's good for for more plugins. So we can do mixing stuff with it. Mixing stuff, great, mixing stuff, but we don't want to play live, okay? So you might be asking me, well, wait, hold on a second. Does this mean that you change the buffer size? Absolutely yes. 100% I changed the buffer size. Actually, I'm lying to you. Sorry. I don't change the buffer size because my computer is such a beast that I don't need to change the buffer size. This computer is so dope with this specs, i7 quad core with 32 gigs of RAM, that it just laughs in the face of everything I throw at it. I haven't made a session with this computer yet that I have to deal with that. It just is fine with everything. So I don't change my buffer size. But if I'm using a computer that's slower, has a slower processor, has less RAM, then I change my buffer size all night and all day. So if I'm making my beat and I'm programming stuff in, then I'm gonna have a lower buffer size. I'm gonna change this down to 128. 128 I find is good. It's a good balance. It doesn't make your computer do crazy things, and it lets you play and you don't have too much latency, so it's good. If I'm mixing and I'm having problems with my amount of my processors, then I use 1024. Actually, I should be straight with y'all and say that I also use UAD plugins. So I use a lot of plugins from my UAD cards. So the processor on my computer is not doing as much work. If I was using everything from like Slate or like everything from Native Instruments, everything was internal in the computer, probably I'd have to do more work. But it's still fine. I mean, I would just change the buffer size, and you can change the buffer size. Your computer shuts things down, opens it back up. Boom, you're good to go. Depends on the thing. What's the difference? What do you mean? What's the difference, Charlie? I don't understand that question. I literally just spent 5 minutes explaining the difference. So you're gonna have to go back and watch the video, buddy. I'm not doing that again. All right, unless you're asking a different question. If you're asking a different question, come back. Let's talk about it in Zoom. But if you're just asking me what the difference is between the different buffer sizes, yeah, dude, it's in the notes, and I just explained it. So, yeah, so I'm not gonna go over that again. But the quick answer is that these ones are good for mixing. Like I would say 128 is good for, sorry, not mixing. 128 is good for performing, and 1024 is good for mixing. Like that. But the sound is going to be the same for anyone. It doesn't change your sound. It doesn't change, like if I'm recording stuff, it doesn't change how the quality of the recording, but you'll start to hear things like snap, crackle, and pop if you're putting too much pressure on your computer to do stuff. So if you're using like a smaller buffer size, and you start to hear like snap, crackle, and pops, then you need to change that buffer size to a higher buffer size. Maybe that's answering your question. But that's when you would change it, is if you're getting problems, change it to a higher buffer size. But then what you're gonna have to do is later on, you're gonna have to put it back to a lower buffer size when it's time to make beats again. But I mean, actually nowadays, a lot of the DAWs are dynamic in how they deal with this stuff. So the technology is getting a lot better than it used to be. So nowadays, you can actually keep things at a higher buffer size. And what happens is your DAW will run at a lower latency buffer size when it can, and it will just fill up that space as it needs to. Pro Tools, I feel like, is maybe a little bit different though. I'm thinking like Ableton Live, Logic, they do a really good job of dynamically allocating the buffer size. Pro Tools, it's okay. It's okay. All right. I hope that answers your question. If not, we can talk about it more in Zoom as well. All right. And this explains everything. This is kind of, the notes here talk about everything. And just remember, please remember y'all, the notes are in your module in Canvas. You go into your week, you go into the modules, the week here, and all the notes are right here. So today we're talking about number 4 here, audio recording. That's the notes. So you have access to all these notes. So 64, 128, 256, these sizes are great for recording and composing. 512, 1024, 2056, these sizes are great for mixing. Remember, you can change the buffer size. In the beginning, when you were mostly writing and playing, we use a smaller buffer size. Later, when you're mixing, change to the larger buffer size. How do you know when that time comes? When you start to hear pops and clicks, okay? Everything's written down for you right there. All right, importing audio. We talked about this earlier. Command-Shift-I, add, imports the audio into the session without copying it, saves hard drive space. Copy, makes a copy of the original file. Video, leave it off. Leave off the video. Do not need the video right now. Copy, makes a copy of the original file and imports it into audio files folder. It's safer. SRC, sample rate conversion. You only need this if your file is at a different sample rate and you're concerned about it. All right. Drag and drop. Charlie, you mentioned this earlier. Drag and drop from the Finder. You can drag and drop an audio file from a Finder window into the 2 locations in Pro Tools, edit window, onto a track, or into the gray space, or into the clips list. Let me just show you what that means. If I go back into Pro Tools, I got this loop here. Okay, so I got that loop there. Let's add another beat loop into that. So I'm going to go ahead and make this smaller. Let me just turn on my hard drive. Wait, oh. Is it already connected? Oh, it's already connected. Why are you not showing up? Oh, you're not connected. Hold on one second. Let me come in here and connect that. There we go. All right, I had my video hard drive connected, not my audio hard drive. Okay, so got this. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and make a new window here. I'm gonna open up my hard drive, Oliver, and I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna go to my sample libraries, and let's go into my Sample Magic. Let's go to Sample Phonics. I like these ones. I have a subscription to Sample Phonics, and there are a lot of weird, cool ones in here. Let's go to Dusty Hip Hop Grooves. And we're going to go into the percussion loops. Let's see what these sound like. What are we tempo at? 90. So let's grab something that's like 90. Okay, so I'll use this one here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure my Pro Tools is in shuffle mode, because that's going to drop it right in the beginning. Whoops, shuffle mode. Go back here, and I'm just going to drag this in to the gray space down here. See that? When I drag it in, boom, it puts it right at the beginning because I was in shuffle mode. Now, I could also drag it in. Let's drag it into the clips list over here. I can also drag it in over here, and it drags it in right there, so you can see it's right up there. So I got that. So that there, I can put that in here. So now I'm going to switch over to grid mode. Put that in. Right here, I'm going to adjust the volume down. Okay, so we can drag audio files in straight from the Finder. Now, one thing it says here though is the track must have the same number of channels as the audio file. Mono equals mono, stereo equals stereo, right? Mono is 1 channel, stereo is 2 channels. You cannot drag a mono audio file onto a stereo track, but you can drag a stereo audio file onto 2 mono tracks. And there's a note on the next page. When you drag an audio file onto the edit Windows gray space, it automatically creates a new track with the correct number of channels, and it will name the track the same name as the audio file. So what does that mean? What that means is if I do not have a track down here, delete, boom, and I drag something onto the gray space, it automatically names the track as my audio file here. See, same name over here, same name over here, yay. Now, if I'm not set up like that though, if I have, let's say I just have a track called audio and I make another track, a mono one, I cannot, see this is like a stereo file, see that's like stereo, remember it says stereo, it's got little things like that, right? Well, I can't drag it on to a stereo. I can drag it onto the stereo track. I cannot drag it onto the mono track. See this? Look at my screen here, and you see that up here, this is a stereo track. It lets me drag it onto the stereo track, but if I put my mouse down here, it does not let me drag it onto the mono track. So here, let me just name these: mono, audio, stereo, and this one here is audio mono 1. Make a new track. Give it a name, audio mono 2. Okay, so now I have my 2 mono tracks. If I want to drag this onto my mono track, watch what happens. It'll put it on 2 separate mono tracks because it'll essentially, Pro Tools will split the stereo file for me. That's a Pro Tools thing. No other DAWs do that. I don't really want to do that though, because that gets confusing stuff, and I don't use Pro Tools like that anymore. That's an old school Pro Tools thing. So I would just put it on the stereo file here. Just be aware you cannot, just of those limitations. It's a weird limitation, but it is a limitation. So I'm going to delete these, right click, hit delete. I'm going to call this one perk loop 1. Cool. All right, so I got that there. I'm going to put this in the beginning, and let's just go ahead. Let's hear what this sounds like. I'm going to drag this other one right on top of it here. Okay, so you can hear these are very different sonically. I actually like this one more, so I'm just going to drag that over. See, are there any? Okay, cool. I'm going to drag it over. I'm going to set it over like this and put that through the whole thing. So let's see, what are people saying? Staffo says, I just found out you can change the size of the tracks by clicking it and then holding the Windows key and press the up and down. I don't know what the Windows key is, similar to the Mac. So yeah, you can click it and up and, what is it? Let me see, that's not that. Hold on. I forget what it is. No. I don't remember what the shortcut is on the Mac, but the way you make these bigger and smaller is you click in this gray space over here, Control. So here, check this out. What he's talking about here is making the track actually bigger and smaller. So if you click on this gray space, and this is like universal, see this gray space right here where it's got like a little ruler thing? If you click on that, you can make it bigger and smaller, or you can just drag it up and down right here, or you can use a shortcut, but I actually don't know what the shortcut is. But if you hold down Option, you can make it bigger for all your tracks here. So boom, I got that here. Check this out. See, I can make them all bigger and smaller like that. So cool. All right. I'll put them in medium mode so we can see them all like that. I'll just go down here, scroll down. I'm gonna put my drums, my perk up over here, perk loop 1. Oh, that's actually perk loop 2. And this one will be perk loop 1. Cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'd love to see it in Zoom. I don't like that fade on that bass. I think that's dumb. I'm gonna take that out right there. Cool. Nice. Okay, that sounds pretty good there. And so that's dragging and dropping, importing audio, 2 different ways to import audio. Okay, so now let's finally get to record modes. We've got some ideas. We want to record them down. So we have 3. We got 3 real record modes in Pro Tools. There's actually 4 record modes, but we got 3 real ones. We got normal, loop, and quick punch. Normal mode, you must hit the record button before you start playback. It's super annoying, but that's how you have to do it. It's very different from Logic and Ableton Live. You gotta make sure you hit that record button before you hit start playback. You can't start playback and then hit record later. Loop, you must set the loop points and hit the record button before you hit play. Loop and normal mode are very similar. It's just loop just makes a loop. Quick punch, you can play the song and hit record at any time to record, stop recording as it plays. And I'm gonna skip all that next part down there for a second, and we're gonna go to quick punch. Let's see here. Quick punch is your favorite. Yeah, Rilla, it's awesome. And then destructive mode, don't even worry about it. Seriously, forget it exists. Don't even worry about destructive mode. Don't worry about it. So let me just show you what we're talking about here. If I go up here, to my record button and I right click, I've got normal, loop, destructive, and quick punch. So normal and loop are basically the same, it's just loop, just loops it. Quick punch allows you to punch in whenever, and then destructive actually records over your audio that's already on there and you don't want to use it again, just don't use it. Okay, so we're gonna go and use normal mode. I'm gonna show you what I mean here. Let me just make them all small like this, and I'm gonna make a new track. I'm gonna make a new mono track audio. I'm gonna give it a name, Tony Vocal, and let's actually make a couple of these. Let's make 2, 3, 4, let's make 4 of these. Boom. So it gives me numbers here when I make several of them, 1, 2, 3, and 4, Tony Vocal 1, 2, 3, and 4. I can hold Option and click it to make them smaller. If I wanna just go ahead and make these bigger, I'm gonna hold Option and Shift to make just these ones a little bit bigger. Now, we're gonna go in here and I'm gonna look at this. I'm gonna see what my input is set to. So before we talk about that, let's just talk about mono versus stereo. Some people are confused about this, mono versus stereo. Most audio tracks will be mono. Remember we talked about it the other day, almost all audio tracks are gonna be mono. Aux tracks are stereo, instrument tracks are stereo, master tracks are stereo. But people ask me this question all the time. If a mix is in stereo, why are my audio tracks mono? That's a great question. Why are the audio tracks mono? Well, the reason why the audio tracks are mono is because if I'm listening to it on headphones or speakers, those are stereo. But if I'm recording individual pieces of things, those are mono. And the mono is like, okay, I'm recording the kick drum, I'm recording the snare drum, I'm recording the tom, I'm recording the whatever. Those are all mono, but they have to end up in stereo eventually. So we've got the mono track, and then we can pan the mono track left and right. Remember, panning has to do with left and right stuff. So we can pan things left and right. So let's just take a look over here in Pro Tools for a second, and let's look at the listen to the breakbeat here. I'm just gonna play the breakbeat, slow it out. Okay, there's my breakbeat. And you can see it's a mono file. It's a mono audio file. There it is right there, it's mono, it's only got one waveform. You can see here the drum loop is 2 waveforms. That's stereo. And if we listen to it, let's listen to the drum loop for a second. It's pretty much a mono file as well, but you can see a little bit, see how it's like the levels are slightly different, like slightly. There's like a little bit of reverb out here to make it a little bit stereo. The sample's a little bit stereo, but it's very, very centered. The breakbeat, however, is just completely mono. Actually, let's take a look at the percussion loop. The percussion loop is stereo. Hear how one of those sounds is like more like right here and the other one's like way over here, okay? That's a stereo signal. The breakbeat is right in the middle. But I have this pan function here. I can move it left and right. So if I go over here, it's way over on the left. If I go over here, it's way over on the right. That doesn't make the thing stereo. It's still mono, but it means that we're going to a stereo speaker set here. My headphones are stereo, and that's what's going on there. Okay, so that's what the difference is between stereo and mono. Your audio tracks, if you're recording on a microphone, they're gonna be mono, but you can make them stereo. You can put them into the stereo field. You're not turning them into stereo files. They're still mono files. You're just spreading them across the stereo field for the final output. All right, Swift says, oh, right? Great, I'm glad you're saying, oh, because that's what it is. And a lot of people don't really understand that in the beginning, and that's okay, like, that's why you're here. So everything almost is gonna be recorded in mono, but eventually we're gonna get it into the stereo file eventually, okay? So what I'm gonna do here is, let me just make these small again so they're not taking up on my screen, is I'm gonna record some stuff in my vocals that's gonna be, we're gonna take it and record it mono, and I'm gonna turn it into stereo here in just a second. All right, so that's what's going on here. That's what that picture's all about. So recording setup. First step is you set up your playback engine. We already did that. Now we're going to set up our track input settings. We have to do the I/O selection section over here. So if the I/O section is kind of weird, it's not right, then we can change that in our I/O setup. If we go to setup, I/O, you can change stuff in here. Now, oftentimes what you want to do is you just want to hit default on stuff. Just go in here and hit default and click on default. Click on default. I'm just going to my input, my output, and my bus. Just click default on all these and you should be good to go without any too many weird names. But check this out. See how this one here says mic line, high Z, mic line. That's like way too long. I don't want all that stuff. So let me just make sure that I don't have anything set up in here. Hold on, let's just see. Let's hit cancel. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change everything to nothing, because in order to do what I'm about to do, you really have to make sure nothing is set up. So I'm going to go to no input for all these, and I hold down option, I go no input, and it changes everything with the stereo or mono signals. So what I did, let me do that one more time. I can't undo it, but here I'll just change it to this. So what I want to do is I want to change all my inputs so they don't have anything, they don't say anything. So I hold down option and I click no input, and it changes things, but it only changes what has the same channel number. In this case, stereo. Now I'm going to do the same thing for my mono tracks. Go to input, hold down option, change it to no input. Now everything says no input, and that just changed my mono files. The reason why I wanted to say no input is because what I'm about to do next, Pro Tools won't allow you to do it if there's some kind of assignment happening. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to change my names on my input using my I/O settings. So I go in here to my I/O under setup, and I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to double click. Yes. Staffo says, so holding option allows you to change more than one track. Yep, that's what option does. Option actually has a few things, which we are going to talk about. So I'm going to change this to input 1. Whoops. Change it, sorry, not input 1, input 1 -2. Now, Pro Tools will automatically rename stuff for me. Input 1, input 2 automatically renames it for me on the subpaths. And we can see over here, look, this is coming into analog 1, analog 2. And now, if I go over here to my bus, make sure we're good. Bus 1 and 2, yeah, we should be good. This is all the output stuff though. Okay, we should be good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit OK. And now on my input, on my interface, see it says input 1 and 2 for my stereo stuff. I don't need anything to be set for an input, but these 4 vocals over here, Tony vocal 1, Tony vocal 2, 3, and 4. All of these, I want these all to be set to the same input because I'm using one microphone. So I'm going to go over here and set them Tony vocal 1, 2, 3, and 4. Hold down option and shift to set the same thing for multiple tracks that are selected. Click on this, interface 1, boom. Yep, I'm plugged into interface 1. So now I can record stuff with this setting here. All right. So that's all this right here, the I/O section. Now, the I/O section is what we want to set up. We want to go to our track input settings and set up our input here. So step number 2 is track input settings, that input right there, boom. Don't need to worry about all this other stuff. It's just showing you what's on that channel. Now we're going to mute the track. Now I'm not going to have any feedback issues because I'm wearing headphones, but I'm going to mute the track anyway. I'm going to deselect them all, so it's just this one that's selected. And if I hit I, check 1, 2, check, check, hey, 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 hey. That's great. Now I want to engage the input monitor button, the I/O settings. Okay, well, so hold on a second. So the I/O settings. So the I/O settings really is just about naming things so the name is correct. We don't need to do the I/O settings. The I/O settings is just about naming stuff. So if we have questions about the I/O settings, we can come back. Let's come back and talk about that because I don't want to get hung up on the I/O settings. But basically, you can just go in here and rename stuff in your I/O settings. It's important, and we need to talk about it, but I don't want to get stuck on it right now if we can avoid it. But basically what I did was I just went into my input and I double clicked my first one here, because remember the name was like Mike, hi Z, blah, 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 so many things, right? It was like a super long thing. I don't want that. I just want input 1-2, and it renames everything down here for me. If I change the name here in 1-2, see, it changes the name for me automatically. But this is the type of thing, these IO settings is the type of thing that you're gonna have to we're gonna have to do it a couple times. I didn't even know the IO settings existed for years. So you can actually do quite a lot without the IO settings. Unless you run into like a real crazy problem. All right. So in here, I've got them set to input number 1. So let's just go back over here to the steps. So track input settings, I'm gonna have all my tracks be set to input number 1 right here, IO, boom, input 1. These are all gonna be set for input 1 because I'm gonna use my same microphone for all 4 tracks, okay? Now, once I've done that, I'm gonna go over here to step number 3, name the track. Okay, that's done right here, over here. Name the track, stay organized, name the track. Step number 4 is mute the track. I already named my track, so I'm not gonna go back and do that. So we're gonna mute the track here, boom. And then number 5 is engage the input monitor button. This allows you to hear whatever is playing through the track. This must be on in order to monitor the incoming audio. Okay, so if I wanna see, you see, check this out. La 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 la. You don't see anything, but if I hit this, la 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 la. If I unmute it, hey, check 1, 2. Now you can hear my voice twice. You're gonna hear it once through the microphone on my chest, and you're gonna hear it another time through Pro Tools. That's exactly how I'm hearing it as well. It's kind of annoying because I'm actually talking myself and I'm hearing it through both things. It's not optimal for me. I'm gonna mute it again because I don't need to hear myself right now. Boom, there you go. So now I talk blah, 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 and you're only hearing it through my lapel mic here. All right. Next, we're going to track, record, enable. We're going to enable the track record. There we go. Boom. Track, record, enable. Hey, check 1, 2. This just means that we can record onto it. Now, if I don't hit this button, then it's not going to let us record onto it at all. It's going to give me a warning. All right, level setting. It's all about checking the input level. I don't want it too soft, but I don't want it to clip. The musician or whoever you're recording should play at their normal volume levels that you're going to be performing at. Don't let singers or horn players play super loud for too long. Savor it for the recording. Don't let them wear themselves out. All right, so now let's go ahead and do this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and set this back here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and record. Turn this off of destructive record, put it in normal record mode. I'm going to go ahead and record a little thing here. Now, what should I? Well, we're just going to record. I want to record the same thing over and again, over and over again. So, okay, I know what I'm going to say. Just a really basic song. Here we go. I'm going to hit I use the 3 key to record, but you could also hit the record button up here. So I hit that, and then when it's ready to go, I hit play. But 3 key does it all at once. Yo, my name is Tony. I got a cat. His name is Unko. He's really furry. He's a furry guy. He's a furry little cat. People like to pet him all day. All right, there we go. Very serious stuff, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make it so I can hear that. So let's go ahead and listen to that. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna edit this clip, this little bit out of the beginning here. I'm gonna edit this little bit out of the end here. And let's just listen to that, okay? Yo, my name is Tony. I got a cat. His name is Unko. He's really furry.
He's a furry guy. He's a furry little cat. People like to pet him all day.
All right, awesome. So that sounds fine, whatever. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put a little bit of effects on here real quick, just so we can, have it like a little bit smoother. So I'm just gonna go ahead and again, we're gonna talk about this in more detail later on. I'm glad y'all like it. There we go. I often sing about my cat, so get used to it. I'm gonna just put a little high pass on there, like 300, whatever. I'll actually put that down a little bit more. Let's put that down like around 200-ish. There we go. Yeah, that's fine. And then let's put a little compression on here. Dynamics, I'll use the BF76. And yeah, just a little bit like that.
Yo, my name is Tony. I got a cat. His name is Unko. He's really furry. He's a furry guy. He's a furry little cat.
Cool.
People like to pet him all day.
All right, so you can hear that little compression just keeps things set there. Do you put the beat at a certain volume? Like, nope, I do not. But I'm just using the beat in here as it is right now. But I am not compressing first. I'm putting the high pass filter on there first. But again, we are going to, put the compression first and then use the fader. Yeah, it was a little bit loud. I'm going to do the fader. But just real quick, I'm going to address that. The effects come after, the fader is after the effects. Does that make sense? So now, if I've got my compressor open, if I adjust this fader, it doesn't matter. We can't hear it, but we can see it's compressing stuff. See that? It's still compressing stuff. Right? The reason why it's compressing stuff is because the track here, is before the plugins and the fader is after the plugins. So the track is before the plugins, but the plugins are before the fader. So it doesn't matter what my level is on the fader here. That's just controlling how much we're hearing it within the mix. That's still being compressed by stuff over here. Okay, and this is something we're going to be talking about many, many, many times in the future. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is we're going to record that again. We're going to double it up. All right, so I'm going to go down here to my second track, and I'm just going to go ahead and mute that. And we're going to set up the thing here. I'm going to hit 3. Yo, my name is Tony. I got a cat. His name is Unko. He's a furry. Okay, and I messed that up, right? So here's where we're going to use quick punch. So I'm going to go over here to quick punch and put in quick punch mode. And I'm going to hit play over here. And what do I say? I think I say he's really furry. I don't remember what I said.
Cat. His name is Unko.
Got that.
He's really furry.
Yeah.
He's a furry guy. He's a furry little cat.
Okay, I got that. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit play, and I'm going to start recording just where I need to punch it in. And this is what quick punch mode does. So I've got my hand on the 3 key. I'm going to hit play.
Cat. His name is Unko.
He's really furry. He's a furry guy. He's a furry little cat. People like to pet him all day. And now I got 2 tracks there, right? And that's what the quick punch does. The quick punch lets us punch in at certain points just where we need to record. So I just hit quick punch and then I just let the quick punch go. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna put it into slip mode, delete the beginnings and the ends of this stuff, and that's what's up with that. Now, Staffo says, honestly, I can't hear the compression good or adjust the knobs. 100% I understand. Compression is the type of thing that it takes a long time, like months or years, to really understand and to hear what it's doing. You have to develop your ears to understand compression properly. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna go over here. We're gonna keep that one muted. I don't need to hear that one right now. I'm just gonna assume that it's fine, and I'm gonna go ahead and hit record over here. I'm not even gonna turn. Okay, yeah, I do want to mute it. All right, Control H to heal that. No, you can't heal it with Control H. Control H Heal is only stuff that was already previously one thing. If I want to consolidate this, which is what Pro Tools calls it, I can do that right here. So let me just move that over like that. I can highlight both of them. Just click on both of them with your grabber tool and with the Shift key pressed, and hit Option Shift 3, which is consolidate. It's under here under Edit. So if I go to Edit, go to Consolidate Clip. If you want to put these together, what you just called Heal, it's not called Heal. In Pro Tools has a Heal, but it's different. What you want to do is you want to use Consolidate. So it's going to be Option Shift 3. All right, I sound like Beck. Oh, the lead singer is Beck. You bring stuff back if you were saying stuff into the mic before you pressed record. As long as you hit record at some point after and keep saying something. Absolutely, Rilla, you're 100% right. So we're going to talk about that right now, as a matter of fact. So now let's go into this one. I'm going to record it again. And I'm going to go ahead and hit play. I'm in quick punch mode. I'm going to hit play. I'm going to record some stuff. Yo, my name is Tony. I got a cat. He's furry. He's a furry guy. He's a furry little cat. People like to pet him all day. Now, what you're going to notice is it's not recording anything, but if I hit my quick punch record button right now, if I hit my quick punch record button there at the end, watch this. Everything had been recorded. And that's another thing that quick punch does. And that's what Rilla, you're stealing my thunder, bro. You're stealing my thunder. I like to keep that for the end and like shock people like, whoa, what? But you're 100% right. As long as you hit record at some point, everything was recorded, right? Which is dope. So I'm just gonna drag this back because I don't need all that. I'm gonna drag all that over there. And then I got super lost all this right here in the middle. So it's so cool. It's so cool. The quick punch. Or are you talking about this cat song? I don't know. All right. So you notice that I messed all this stuff up in here. I think I messed all this. So let's take this over here. Let's go ahead and listen to this one real quick. I just want to hear what this one sounded like. I'm just gonna solo it out. Right there. Let's go.
Yo, my name is Tony. I got a cat.
Right?
He's furry.
Now, good question, Staffo. Why are you recording over the other vocals that were recorded already, that were there already? All right. I'm going to show you in just a second why we're doing that. This is called doubling. We're doubling it up, all right? So let me just listen to this one more time. Let's go over to here. This one's some.
I got a cat.
All right. And then what does this one say?
Oh,
yeah. Let's listen to this one here.
His name is Unko. He's really furry.
Cool. All right. So I got that. So I'm going to go ahead and let this one play here. I'm going to mute this one. I'm going to mute this one here. Let's record that last one again. Just right in here. We don't need to record the whole thing. So I'm just going to hit go.
I got a cat.
His name is Unko. He's really furry. He's a furry cat. What did I say? Did I say he's a furry cat or a furry guy? I don't remember. My memory is, like I said, Swiss cheese.
He's a furry guy.
Oh, I did. Okay, so let's quick punch over that one there.
He's really furry.
He's a furry guy. There we go. Cool. All right, so let's do one more down here. I want to get 4 of these bad boys. Let's see if I can do this all in one take. Now, the other thing I can do is I can use loop record for this. So loop record, what I can do is I can just have it record that over and over and over again. So let's just do that one more time so we can just see that. I'm going to put this here like this. Boom, boom, boom. Now, if I do it like this, let's do the pre-roll of 1 bar like that. Cool. All right. Why are you authorizing my software with the iLock cloud? That was weird. Let's do a save. I haven't done a save in a while. Oops. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Okay. So now we're going to use loop mode, and loop mode lets me record stuff over and over and over again. So let's just go ahead and do that. So I'm going to hit record. Yo, my name is Tony. I got a cat. His name is Unko. He's really furry. He's a furry guy. He's a furry little cat. People like to pet him all day. Yo, my name is Tony. I keep forgetting, right? He's a furry. He's a furry guy. He's a furry little cat. People like to pet him all day. Yo, my name is Tony. I got a cat. His name is Unko. He's a really furry. Right? You get the idea. I can just record it over and then I can go back and pick the best one. So here's the thing is that once I've recorded these, if I have the proper setting in Pro Tools, I can actually put this on different playlists. Now, we haven't talked about playlists yet. We're going to talk about playlists, but not today. Oh, actually, we are going to talk about playlists here in just a second, but after the break. But I just want to show you I'm recording different playlists here as a loop, and that's because I have a setting set up in the preferences, and that's in the preferences under setup, preferences. We go in here to operation, record, and right here, automatically create new playlists when loop recording. That's really important. So let's see here. Staffo says, what if you recorded without Quick Punch? What would the process be? If you recorded without Quick Punch, you're just going to hit record first and you just record over the whole thing. I'm going to actually show you that here in a second. And then Andy says, I'm guessing it'll be record the other bar on another track list instead of Quick Punch. Yeah, okay. So Andy, you're getting pretty... Joe. That's hilarious. Andy says, recording... basically you're right, Andy. There's a little bit more to it than that, but we're going to talk about that in a second. I love it, Joe. That's hilarious. I don't know if I should be embarrassed or not. You know what? Too late. So automatically create new playlists when loop recording. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK. So that's what we want to do. Let me just show you where that is one more time. Under Setup, Preferences, Operation, automatically create new playlists when loop recording. Right there, boom. Make sure that box is checked. It's not checked by default. And that's going to be a cool way to record. I don't know why they don't have that set for default. It's actually a great way to do it. It doesn't hurt anything. All right, but let me show you one more thing. I loop recorded all that. Now, the part that I loop recorded was just this one section from here to here. That's all it was. But let me show you this. If I take this audio file and I drag it, or if I trim back to the left, we can see that there's more stuff over here, and that's because it was looping. Let's talk about this in here. Loop record. This allows you to set your in and out points on the timeline to record a specific section of the song over and over again. Then you right-click the record button in the transport and select loop, or option L. And this records, what it does is it records one long audio file, but we only see the section we've been looping. So what this means is if I'm only looping this part of my song right here, it's actually recording a whole bunch of stuff, but we're only seeing this section right here. And we can use the trim button to trim it out so we can see more stuff, which is dope, okay? Now, down here, create new playlist during recording. If we wanted to go onto a new playlist, which we're going to talk about in just a second, we can use Setup, Preferences, Operation, Record, automatically create new playlists when loop recording. So this is just a diagram to show you what I'm talking about here. To make sure you don't chop off the beginning or end, I always set a couple of measures in the beginning or the end, set your loop up, and you see this, boom, boom, boom. But if we set up the loop record, we only see one section. That's what this picture is showing us. We see it, it goes over, boom, it hits the end, it goes back, it goes back, it goes back. But what's recorded onto our hard drive is actually one longer audio file. So once you start messing around with it, I think you'll understand it better. All right, where are we? Are we good here? Okay, cool. So let's see. let's go to a different playlist here because this one was the one that's actually correct. So now we got all these here. Now this is why we've been doing this as doubles. We've been doubling this up, and this is a really cool thing. This is going to illustrate all this stuff. So what we've been doing so far is we've been recording everything as separate little files. So I'm just going to solo these out so we can hear it. Oops, here, let me turn off, wait, hold on. Let me turn off my pre-roll, and let me just turn this on like this. Okay, cool, so there we go.
Yo, my name is Tony. I got a cat.
Yeah, I do.
His name is Unko.
That one, we know that one's fine, actually. We know the second one's fine. Let's do the third one, actually. Make sure.
Yo.
Okay, I see how it's louder.
My name is Tony. I got a cat.
It's more compressed.
His name is Unko.
Turn that
He's really furry.
I'm going to turn the input down a little bit.
He's a furry guy.
So it's not compressing quite as much.
He's a furry little cat.
There we go.
People like to pet him all day.
Right, cool. I'm going to turn these all down a little bit here as well after I listen to them. And then this one here, I'm going to set my settings. These settings are a bit louder, actually. I think all these can use the same settings. So I'm just going to hold Option and drag this plug-in to different ones. And now I'm going to click on this one down here. Let's listen to this number 4 here.
Yo.
Okay, now the first part of yo was cut off. You hear how that was popped? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the yo from over here. This is a great place to use relative grid. So what I'm going to do is I've just got this here. I'm going to just use that. I'm going to put my thing into relative grid mode. Now check this out. I put it into relative grid mode up in the upper left-hand corner. Use relative grid like that. It's purple. And I'm going to grab this yo, which was from the loop. I'm going to grab it. Whoops. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to drag it over here to the left and see how it keeps its relativity to the grid down here. Let me just do that again and so you can see it. So here's what's happening. Over here.
Yo.
Here there's a pop on the beginning.
Yo.
There's a pop. We don't want that pop. So this one over here.
Yo.
There's no pop on that one. So I'm going to grab this one. So what I did was I cut it right before the yo. And I used Command E to separate things. And we're going to talk about that with editing stuff later. But I used Command E. And I'm going to put it into relative grid mode. Right now I've been working in slip mode. So I'm just going to go up here. I'm going to put it into relative grid mode. Or I'm going to use F4, which does the same thing. And then when it's in relative grid mode, see how it's like not on the grid. If I put it into normal grid mode, normal regular grid mode, which is blue, watch what happens. Check this out. I click and I drag it, and now it's like directly on the bar. I don't want it directly on the bar because actually, see, it moves the location of it. I don't want it like that. I want to preserve my timing and move it to the correct place. So I put it into relative grid mode, and I move it over, and now it preserved the timing relative to the grid. It's relative to the grid. See what they did there? It's not grid, it's relative grid. So it's like if it was like half a second before the grid, it's still half a second before the grid. It's just on a different grid line. I really don't know the best way to explain that so people can understand it clearly, but it's just, it is what it is. It is what it says. So now we got this. Let's go ahead and listen to it, the whole thing.
Yo.
Yeah, good.
My name is Tony. I got a cat. His name is Unko. He's really furry.
Nice.
He's a furry guy.
I'm going to put this down to 100.
He's a furry little cat.
Yeah, let's put that down to like 100 down there. On all of these, I'm just going to hold down Option and drag it over to replace these ones here. That just like copies the settings over. Great, okay. So now let's check this out here. I'm going to go ahead and put this back 1 bar so we have a bar to get into it. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to listen to it once, and I'm going to keep everything in the middle. And you're going to hear all these. I'm going to turn them down a little bit because they're going to compound each other. They're going to be a little bit louder. Put those down to about -10-ish. Okay, I'm just estimating that. Is it better to use a doubler or VST or record the vocals again and again and pan them left and right? Ooh, that's a great question, Al. And when you're recording a track to record, should it be in mono or stereo? I think it's mono, but I'm not sure. Staffo, you are correct. It is mono. Now, Al says, this is a great question. Is it better to use a double or VST or just duplicate the tracks or re-record them? And the answer is it's better to re-record them. again and again and again. If you look at professional recordings, and this doesn't matter which DAW you're in, if it's Pro Tools, Logic, Ableton Live, whatever. If you look at professional recordings, they have 1 million tracks doubled up. And that's because every time you re-sing it, even with the best singer in the world, it's gonna be slightly different, just very slightly different. So you want those differences in there. If you use a doubling VST, what it does is it introduces either chorus or some phasing or some things like that, and it tries to do some timing and pitching type of things. And it does a pretty good job, and they do okay. But it's not the same as having the person do it again and again and again. So if you want to double stuff up, then you definitely need to have the person re-sing it. If they aren't there to re-sing it, then use a doubling VST. Or try a double VST for other uses, but they have a sound to them, and the sound is not bad, it's just different. What you don't want to do is you don't want to duplicate the track, because duplicating the track, literally all it does is it just makes a copy of the track, which just makes things louder. It doesn't make things sound wider. So let's listen to this. I'm going to go ahead and solo all these out right now. Let's listen to this now with all of them doing it. So here's just one time, the first one.
Yo.
I'm going to put this one in.
My name is Tony.
Right? You can hear it's detuned, it's out of tune.
Cat.
Right? Now it's...
His name is Unko.
Right?
He's really furry.
Okay.
He's a furry guy. He's a furry little cat.
Right? Now, that sounds kind of weird. So what we want to do is we want to pick one to kind of be the main one. Let's actually use the second one. The first one was like whatever, I was still getting used to it. So we're going to put this one up top here and these down here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this one be louder than the others. And I'm going to turn these other ones down a little bit, bring them down to like -15 or so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pan them left and right. So I'm going to pan these left and right, hard left and hard right so y'all can hear it nice. Let's do this one like over there in the middle kind of. Now let's hear it.
Yo, my name is Tony. I got a cat. His name is Unko. He's really furry. He's a furry guy.
There we go.
He's a furry little cat. People like to pet him all day.
And you hear how different that sounds? And that sounds pretty cool. Now what we can do is let's take that a step further. And I'm actually going to subgroup these. And subgrouping is something we haven't talked about yet, and we're going to talk about it later in detail, but I just want to get y'all kind of understanding like what this all stuff is going to be about. So we're going to go ahead and make this new track. Whoops, not the audio track, sorry. We're going to make a new aux track, stereo aux track. Boom. Get rid of you, don't need you. And we're going to call this one vocal group. And let's do this. I'm going to actually make 2 subgroups here. I'm going to make another one that's, let's call this one background. Let's call it vocal doubles. Vocal double group. And remember I talked about abbreviating everything. So we're going to go in here and do this. And 1, 2, 3. These ones here are going to go to that vocal double group. Go to my vocal double group like that. Blam. And then all these are now going to go to my vocal group. Blam. And again, I'm going to show you how to do all this stuff more detail later on. These ones here, I'm going to go ahead and turn these up a little bit more. Left and right. All right, cool. So let's just listen to these.
Yo, my name is Tony.
There we go, like that.
I got a cat.
Make sure I'm balancing it nice.
His name is Unko.
Cool. Now, these, I can turn them down. I've got this one fader right here because I've made a subgroup. And again, we're going to come back and talk about the subgroups in more detail later on. But what I want to do is I just want to balance those with my main vocal here.
Yo.
There we go.
My name is Tony.
Cool.
I got a cat.
And we just want to have a nice spread there.
His name is Unko. He's really furry. He's a furry guy.
Now you can hear the vocals are way too loud compared to my, the instruments are way too loud compared to my vocals. So what we'll do is we'll subgroup these as well into an instrument. Let's make a new track over here. And we're going to call this one instrument group. Oops. Give that a proper name, not instrument GTP, instrument group. And all my instruments are going to go into the instrument group. Now we can just balance between those.
Yo, my name is Tony. I got a cat. His name is Unko. He's really furry.
And you hear how it's like,
He's a furry guy. He's a furry little cat.
right? Just kind of back there in the background, just kind of thickening things up, right? And obviously, if you were doing this for real, you would take more time with the vocals, make sure they line up a bit better, because I was kind of doing them in slightly different ways every time. So it's not exactly the perfect doubling, but you get the idea. The other thing that's really cool about doubling stuff up is that the more doubles you do, the more correct it sounds. It starts to sound like a choir of people instead of just like one person playing it, singing it badly a couple times, which is what it sounds like in my case, because I am by no means am I a vocalist, although I used to try to play one on TV and it did not go well. All right, so that's the basics of recording audio. What I want to do is this. Let's take a 10-minute break. We're going to come back to Twitch again, and I'm going to go over the lab. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go over the first bunch of steps of the lab for lab 2, because we haven't got to comping yet, which is lab 3, and that's going to be next week, all right? So we're going to take a 10-minute break. Let's be back at 12:30, and we're going to do like another half hour or so here on Twitch, and then we'll move over to Zoom, all right? So that's